Good afternoon to our audience joining us on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, as well as on YouTube Live. JB Buno here with you live on WFLA now. Our signal coming from Spring Hill, Florida, where in Pasco County, Governor DeSantis expected to sign the Florida Parental Rights in Education bill into law. That, of course, has been dubbed by critics as the Don't Say Gay legislation here in the Sunshine State. We're going to get your reaction and, of course, hear from Governor DeSantis momentarily when this press conference begins in Spring Hill, Florida. We're going to take you to it live. We do have, again, the live signal here. He's expected to sign that bill into law, and then after the bill signing ceremony, we'll, of course, stay here with you live and garner some of your reaction, what you're saying on social media. We'll be taking your comments from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, kind of spotlighting some of the conversation. But I also want to let you know as well, if you click on the link in the description on this video, it'll take you over to WFLA.com. We have a great explainer on what is actually in the bill, the language in the bill. We have a great explainer on it from our own Evan Donovan. Again, live here on WFLA Now across all platforms. Again, JB here with you live, everybody, on WFLA Now. This is live from Spring Hill, Florida. In fact, let's get the exact school for you. It is Classical Preparatory School in Spring Hill, Florida, where Governor DeSantis is about to be joined by Education Commissioner Richard Corcoran, Speaker Chris Sprowls as well. You can see that they're putting up the signage here, and it reads, "Protect children, support parents." That is the signage for the press conference. Again, expected to be the bill signing for the Florida Parental Rights in Education bill, what critics are calling "Don't Say Gay." We're here live, everybody, on WFLA Now. The press conference expected to begin momentarily. Again, a great explainer on the language in this bill and what this bill actually does and the effects that it could have in Florida. It's all for you on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, from our political anchor, Evan Donovan.
Cross over there, or we stay over here?
A bunch of us.
I got it. Where we headed? We lost. Okay. Wherever you go. We're still leading.
Good afternoon to the new audience joining us on WFLA's Facebook page, live on WFLA.com, WFLA's app. Here's Governor Ron DeSantis in Spring Hill, Florida.
It's great to be at Classical Preparatory School, so I want to thank them for hosting us. And we've got an all-star cast of folks here that are joining us. We have Richard Corcoran, Commissioner of Education, who many people around here know. We also have January Littlejohn, who's a parent from Leon County, who's going to speak. Erin Lovely, who's also a parent from Palm Beach County, and she's going to speak. We have our Speaker of the House, Chris Sprowls, from nearby. We have Senators Kelly Stargel and Dennis Baxley, so I want to thank them for coming. We have Representative Joe Harding. We have Representative and future Senator Blaise Ingoglia. We have Representatives Byrd, Beltran, Grawl, and Maggard. And last but not least, we have Senator Danny Burgess. So I want to thank all of them for coming here with us. So, as many of you know, I think the last couple years have really revealed to parents that they are being ignored increasingly across our country when it comes to their kids' education. We have seen curriculum embedded for very, very young children, classroom materials about sexuality and woke gender ideology. We've seen libraries that have clearly inappropriate pornographic materials for very young kids. And we've seen services that were given to students without the consent or even knowledge of their parents across the country. And unfortunately, that's happened here in the state of Florida. You're going to hear from some parents where that has happened. Now, in Florida, we found at least 6 school districts that had policies to cut parents out of decisions regarding their child's well-being and to shield them from knowing about various forms of mental health services: Broward, Hillsborough, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Sarasota, and Volusia counties. Martin County also had a gender transition plan that can be implemented without the parents' consent. In Leon County, Florida, a school excluded parents from conversations about a student's, quote, gender transition, a situation for which the district superintendent has apologized for and admit that should never have occurred. And it's not just limited to Florida. In fact, it's probably a lot worse in many other parts of the country. In Idaho, a counselor was working with a 10-year-old student to help the student transition to a different gender without informing the child's parents. In California, a mother has filed a legal case alleging 2 middle school teachers manipulated her child's identity, then called the meeting to inform her, the parent, that the student is transgender. And in California, a high school student recently committed suicide after an LA high school gave her gender transitioning hormones rather than treat her underlying depression. And so we've also found cases where school districts and individual schools took it upon themselves to decide it's okay to sexualize the education of very young children. We've actually have different things, and this is not something that I thought was something that was going to be around. So this is something this is in Florida and other places, school for very young kids, the genderbread man. So this is trying to sow doubt about kids, about their gender identity. It's trying to say that, they could be whatever they want to be. This is inappropriate for kindergartners and first graders and second graders. Parents do not want this going on in their schools. What else do we have? Oh. This is, again, very young kids talking about when I was born, mom and dad said it's a girl, looked in the mirror, I saw a girl kind of, now I see a boy because of transgender. So this is something that you're putting into classroom curriculum for 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old kids. And again, that is not something that's appropriate for any place, but certainly in the state of Florida. And shouldn't parents know if that is something that's in the curriculum? They should be able to have a voice in that. And so this is not just in Florida, and again, many other states, it's even more aggressive. In Connecticut, kindergarten students are taught about being transgender as part of, quote, social justice standards. In Denver, kindergartners were subject to, quote, gender sensitivity training, and in Illinois, they require sex education beginning in kindergarten. So this is part of a national trend to cut parents out of their child's education. In Florida, we not only know that parents have a right to be involved, we insist that parents have a right to be involved. And so we've already taken great steps. Last year, I signed the Parents' Bill of Rights in the state of Florida, which was really something that was significant. Last week, we signed curriculum transparency legislation so that parents have a right to access the curriculum that's in their kids' schools, as well as understand what type of books are in school libraries. And today, we will sign HB 1557, the Parents' Rights in Education Bill. And this bill takes 3 main steps. First, the bill prohibits classroom instruction about sexuality or things like transgender in K through 3 classrooms. And after 3rd grade, those curriculums need to be age appropriate. Second, the bill ensures that at the beginning of every school year, parents will be notified about health care services offered at the school with the right to decline any service offered. And finally, this bill ensures that whenever a questionnaire or health screening is given to our young students, parents receive it first and give permission for the school to give it to their child. Now, there's been a lot of discussions about this particular piece of legislation. You've seen a lot of sloganeering and fake narratives by leftist politicians, by activists, by corporate media, and you still see it even today after a lot of this stuff has been debunked. Now, it's true. Many of the people who whip this up have never actually read the bill. They haven't taken the time to do that. They would rather just further narratives. But I must tell you, these leftist politicians, corporate media outlets, some of these activist groups, they actually have read the bill. And they're sloganeering because they don't want to admit that they support a lot of the things that we're providing protections against. For example, they support sexualizing kids in kindergarten. They support injecting woke gender ideology into 2nd grade classrooms. They support enabling schools to, quote, transition students to a, quote, different gender without the knowledge of the parent, much less without the parent's consent. And so what they're doing with these slogans and these narratives is they are trying to camouflage their true intentions. They know, in every single poll that's been done that actually reads the language in the bill, will find overwhelmingly Americans oppose injecting this type of material into the classroom of young kids. Americans support the right of parents to be informed and to be able to withhold consent over certain types of medical treatments in school. So they know that, and so that's why they're resorting to some of the narratives. And it hasn't worked, but let's just be clear. It's not just all of them have not read the bill. Many have not. Many have, and many of them want to see this type of stuff in our schools. So be very, very careful when you see that. And someone told me that there's even people in Hollywood that are opposed, to providing protections for parents and enforcing parents' rights. The one thing I'll say about that is, if the people who held up degenerates like Harvey Weinstein up as exemplars and as heroes and as all that, if those are the types of people that are opposing us on parents' rights, I wear that like a badge of honor. And so we will continue to recognize that in the state of Florida, parents have a fundamental role in the education, health care, and well-being of their children. We will not move from that. I don't care what corporate media outlets say. I don't care what Hollywood says. I don't care what big corporations say. Here I stand. I'm not backing down. We will make sure that parents can send their kids to school to get an education, not an indoctrination. And so I'm happy to be here today. We'll sign this in a minute, but in the meantime, we're going to have some speakers come up. And so the first speaker will be the Speaker of the House, Chris Sprowls.
Thank you, Governor. It's great to be with you and all the members of the legislature that are here today. There's a lot of nicknames when you have governors. This governor has worked on education policies, worked on workforce, so much policy in the state of Florida. But I'm going to add another nickname. This is the boldest governor in America for Florida families, for Florida parents, and for Florida children. And I want you to think about that for a second, because I think all of this fits together. A year and a half ago, when the rest of the country was shutting down schools, refusing to allow teachers back into the classroom to educate children, refusing to allow children to get back to education, this governor, Commissioner Corcoran, made sure that our kids not only got back in the classroom to learn, but made sure that before that this governor signed Aaron Grahl, Representative Grahl's bill on the Parents' Bill of Rights, to make sure parents knew these are the rights that you have as a parent. You don't give away your rights at the front door of the school. And that continued into this session. This is the session of Florida parents, of Florida families. One of the upsides of COVID is that I don't think that's ever before in our country have parents been more engaged in what their kids are learning inside the classroom and more sensitive to the books that are in the library, to the instruction that's happening and how that impacts their children. This session with this bill, I have to give a big shout out to Representative Joe Harding, Senator Baxley, who all session long took the hits and the lies perpetrated in places like corporate media and Twitter and pushed back because they had one goal in mind, and that was to prevent little children, 5- and 6-year-olds, from walking into a classroom and being indoctrinated on radical concepts like extreme gender ideology. So I want to thank both of you gentlemen for fighting that fight. But I think the governor's right. The fight is clear. Think about that, and I said this 100 times during the course of the legislative session. The language in this bill is 4 pages long. It's double-spaced. The changes are underlined, right? If the teachers who had their kids redraft, concepts that are here said, oh gosh, it's going to be double-spaced and underlined, that's going to make the day really easy. This was super easy to figure out what this bill did. And yet, people lied about it. The media lied about it. Advocates lied about it. Whether it was in the White House press room or whether it was last night at the Oscars, there were lies about it. And the governor's right, they were intentional. Very few people tried to actually tell individuals what the bill did. I'm going to give Evan Donovan a shout out here because you did. You did a news and you said this is what this bill does. Here's a graphic. Here are the bullet points. You didn't try to add personal commentary. You just said you decide. But here's why people don't do that. Because if you tell Americans you get to decide, do you think it is appropriate for kids to walk into a classroom when they are, I have a 5 and 6-year-old, by the way, when they are 5 and 6 years old to learn about transgender instead of math or science or photosynthesis or, whatever it is for that day. Do you think that's appropriate? Maybe photosynthesis is a little intense for 5-year-olds. I hear Corcoran murmuring behind me. But the reality is they would say that's crazy. Of course we wouldn't do that. And what have we seen? There have been outlets, conservative outlets, liberal outlets, moderate outlets who've released polls. Republicans, Democrats, and independents all agree that parents should play an active role in these concepts. I couldn't be more proud of the individual legislators behind us. I am so grateful that we have a governor in Ron DeSantis who is willing to say, I am going to push back against the lies. I don't care about Twitter. I don't care about the nonsense. We are going to lead in what's in the best interest of Florida parents and Florida children. It's great to be with you all today. Thank you.
Okay, and so next, this is really what it's all about, to protect these parents. So first, we're going to hear from January Littlejohn.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is January Littlejohn. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and a stay-at-home mom to 3 incredible children. I want to first thank Representative Harding and Senator Baxley for sponsoring this bill. I want to thank all of the legislators who voted yes for this bill and stood up for parental rights and what's best for our children, many of whom are behind me, so thank you. And I want to also thank Governor DeSantis, who has been steadfast in both his leadership and his unwavering support for parental rights in our great state. What happened to our family is one of the many reasons this bill is necessary. In September of 2020, my daughter told me after school she had a meeting with school officials that was held behind closed doors where they asked her which restroom she wanted to use. I immediately contacted the school and was told by the guidance counselor and assistant principal that I could not be given any information regarding the meeting and that by law, my daughter had to be the one to authorize my notification of the meeting or attendance to the meeting. In other words, school officials asked my 13-year-old child her permission as to whether or not my parental rights would be honored. After many weeks of going back and forth with the district, we learned the middle school had created a transgender, gender nonconforming support plan with our 13-year-old daughter without our knowledge or consent. The plan was a 6-page document completed with my daughter behind closed doors with 3 school officials that included the guidance counselor, the assistant principal, and a social worker I had never met. During the meeting, they asked her questions that could have significantly impacted her safety and her physical and emotional well-being, such as which restroom she preferred to use and which sex she preferred to room with on overnight field trips. The plan also directed school staff to use my daughter's birth name when speaking to us, her parents, and to use a different name in school with teachers, staff, and students. This plan directed school staff to conceal from us that this meeting and plan had ever taken place. When parents are excluded from critical decisions affecting their child's health and well-being at school, it sends the message to children that their parents' input and authority are no longer important. This created a huge wedge between our daughter and us because it sent the message that she needed to be protected from us, not by us. Social transition is a medical and mental health intervention that can lead to significant decisions that will impact the child's mental and physical well-being. Often, social transition is the first step toward medical transition, and schools are grossly unqualified to be taking these steps without parental involvement. Unfortunately, what happened to my family is not an isolated incident. I have been contacted by parents all over our state who's had their rights violated in this same manner. Parental involvement in a child's education is considered by many education experts to be the most important factor in student success. This is well known and documented, yet schools have been systematically cutting parents out of critical decisions being made with their children painting them as enemies to their children with no due process. Parents know and love their children more than anyone in this world. I have always told my children my #1 job is to keep them safe, and this school took that away from me. For the safety of our children, these parental rights violations must stop, and school districts must be held accountable when they break the law. Thank you, Governor, for signing this law.
That was awesome. Great job. And just so you know, the left, they want that to happen to all other families. They don't want any protections for parents. They think that they should just be able to take your kid and do whatever what the hell they want with them. That is wrong, and she was right to stand up against the school district, and now every parent's going to have the right to do that. Okay, Aaron Lovely.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, Governor, for everything that you're doing and for honestly showing us what true leadership looks like. This is, and everybody back here, too, so thank you. We're originally from Tennessee. I don't know if you can hear the slang. We're originally from Tennessee, but we moved to Florida 8 years ago, and I could not be more proud to live in this state, honestly. So, you know, you never know how you're going to feel about something, how you're going to react, what you're going to do until it affects you or your family or your children, specifically personally. And I never thought I would be a homeschool mom because I love to work, but here we are. We moved to Palm Beach County from Orlando a year ago. We wanted private school, but due to because of things that we'd started hearing, but it wasn't in the cards for us financially. Everyone raved about Marsh Point Elementary. Everybody told us it was the very best school in our little area, and so we went with it. A week in, we lost the opt-out opportunity in masking. A month in, a letter was sent home in my son's backpack, and I'm so glad I checked his bag. It was on a Friday that 3 kids from each class were going to be selected and form a new class without our knowledge at all. There was no details, no info whatsoever, no bio given, no meeting, no photo, and the parents aren't even allowed in the school. We were just supposed to be okay with, sending our kid to a stranger. He had already made friends, so we prayed hard over this and trusted God would take care of him. He always does, just not how you would think sometimes. I'm a positive thinker, so we just went with it. We quickly started hearing questionable things. Parents were being called bullies because we were emailing her too much, and I'm like, we had a lot of questions, so yes, we were emailing her a lot. My son's behavior started to change a little bit. He was very frustrated with me, more so than normal. Later, other things came up, disturbing things about medical choices that I think should be between the family. The kids were given extra credit if they made these medical choices. 2nd grade, mind you. Yes. But here's where I drew the line. Thanksgiving morning, he chose to tell me on Thanksgiving. We were sitting there, and he tells me about a book that she had read to the class called Call Me Max. It's this one here. If you've read the book at all, I could cry thinking about it. There was no permission slip given, no heads up, and hey, how do you feel about this? Nothing. There was somebody next door that gave a permission slip out to parents for James and the Giant Peach. I'm like, what about that one? After she finished the book, so he had to sit there and listen to the whole thing. After she finished the book, he raised his hand and he said, "No, this isn't right. This is not who God made you to be." And she disagreed with him and said, "No, you can be whatever you want to be if you just have an imagination." And so I'm like, well, yeah, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, president, but God doesn't make mistakes, and he didn't make a mistake when he made you. So under this bill, which again, obviously most people have not read it. I don't think a lot of people have. It protects the fundamental rights of parents to make choices regarding the upbringing and the control of their children. It prohibits school districts from doing what happened in ours, and prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation and gender identity in a 2nd grade classroom. So needless to say, we never went back. We never went back to that class. He was moved to a 3rd person at this point. We had to switch him. I was like, he's not going back, but it was not an easy choice. It was not an easy process. The principal was not easy to work with in this. But people have asked, why couldn't we have stayed in that class? And the simple answer is, when I talked to the principal about it, he said that these books, meaning there's more than just that one, are a district requirement to be in the public schools. So they have the choice to read them or not, but it's a district requirement. So I was like, I don't want him around that without the wherewithal, without the knowledge as a parent. This school and how they handled things completely shattered my trust. And so I'm hoping with this new bill that things can change for all those sweet babies that aren't telling their parents, that aren't speaking up. So I'm beyond thankful for the opportunity to be a homeschool mom. It's crazy, but I'm thankful. And I'm hoping that this can help for the parents that don't have the choice. So thank you so much.
Commissioner of Education, Richard Corcoran, where's he at?
Thanks, Governor. I feel a little pressure speaking after these great speakers, and I don't have photosynthesis in my remarks, so they dropped that bomb on me. But I think it's appropriate that we do this bill signing in a classical school. And if you look at what the classical model is, it goes back to the ancient Greek. And you talk about truth and goodness and beauty. And you're in a library, where, Mark Twain used to say, the person who doesn't read books has no advantage of those that don't, or illiterate. And if you look around the room, you see this just lined with great people throughout history, great thinkers, great philosophers, all in pursuit of truth. And what really is at stake, you've heard it from the governor, you've heard it from the speaker, you've heard it from these speakers, is it is a war on the existence of truth. What they're really trying to do, it's not just have debates and have people discuss whether you're on this side or that side. It is a war on whether truth really exists. And I also want to say at this point that how did I get to be the speaker when you bring in a bunch of cute kids? I mean, I'm drawing some little small straws today. One of them's mine. I won't tell you which one. She's over there. Can you stand for a sec?
Oh, yeah. Is that your youngest?
Yeah. But now that they're in the room, we've got this bill signed. I just want to close with this. You've heard it said many times. I've worked for this governor for 4 years almost. And I will tell you, he's not a good governor. He's not a great governor. He's the best governor ever. And you've heard it said from some of the speakers, there's just not I'll say it publicly, fact check me, do whatever you want. There's not a single study in the entire world that says when parents are actively involved in their child's education that outcomes don't increase. Does not exist. It is an absolute truth. And what every parent should know, every legislation we have done, every educational proposal we have fought for from the day this guy took office has been one single thing in mind, and that is we are going to do everything we can to help children get a world-class education, and we're going to protect parents in their right to make sure that happens for their child. So to every single child, to every single parent, know this, that this governor has your back, and he will not back down. Thank you, Governor.
Okay. You going to do it right here? All right. Excuse me, guys. You guys can crowd around here. You want a pen? Make sure Joe gets it. You guys all want pens? You want pens too? All right, I think I have it now. I don't think the sponsors are going to have a pen left. I think I'm going to give it all the kids. How many kids do we have? 6? All right. So I think I can do a pen for each kid, and then one for the House sponsor and one for the Senate sponsor. All right, here we go. And today is the 28th. Before I do, we'll show it off official. Anybody? Now, did you plan that together when he spoke? Come on.
Governor, talked to a lot of people who are gay or transgender, I think during the process of this bill going through the legislative process. They're afraid that what's not on the page might chill speech in the classroom about people like them or teachers who maybe are gay, and when those topics come up about what your family looks like, they're afraid. Can you talk to them and just assuage their fears?
Well, I think what you said is very important. That's not on the page. That's not in the book. We're talking about classroom curriculum. There are different issues that will come up in the course. Kids will have questions on as they get older. I think, honestly, these kids probably aren't at that stage yet, but as you do. And so it's focused on the type of curriculum that we've shown here, which is not appropriate for these young kids. And it also says all grades, it needs to be age appropriate, which I think most people agree with. And then the protections for parents so that they're involved in what is going on with their kids. And when you listen to January tell her story about what they did with her child without her knowledge or consent, I don't think there's very many parents in the state of Florida that think that's okay. I can tell you, I don't think that's okay. First Lady, you don't even want to know what she would say. So that's what it's about. It's about protecting parents' ability to be involved, and it's making sure that the classroom instruction, particularly at these very young age, are focused on math, science, and reading. And what's not on the page is not what's going to be done. We are textualists, so we follow the law, and I know Richard will make sure that the Department of Education is going to follow the letter of the law, and that's how it should be. Yes, sir. Richard, you want to talk about that, because I know you guys in the school boards, and they have different.
And if you look at the language, it allows us to.
Yep.
If you read the last part of the bill, it gives the department once this bill is signed, now we can go and, whether it's the standards, whether it's the curriculum, whether it's the professional development, work it out so that people have that clear understanding. And I think if you talk to teachers, Jeff, you'll find that teachers are supportive of, they want guardrails. Where it's frustrating for a teacher is someone to say, hey, you're in trouble, you crossed the line, and nobody said the line was there. What this does is set clear guardrails, and I'll quote Justice O'Connor, I mean, age appropriate, I think people know what age appropriate is. We wouldn't be here having this discussion if generally speaking, there wasn't a real issue or a real problem. I mean, they're perfect examples. And so I think it's a great bill. It's a great opportunity for the department to make clear guidelines and guardrails for the teachers, and I think the teachers will be happy with that. No, what do you see happening?
That was here in Palm Beach. I mean, that's found in Florida when you have the genderbread man, and I think the Palm Beach, as you said, for second grade, they were saying it. And I think that's a good point, Richard, with the teachers. People that go in to teach kindergarten do not want to be teaching this as part of the curriculum. They want to focus on things that are core academic subjects and then obviously are age appropriate. I think the danger in how this has gotten in is not because most teachers want it to be. I think it's because these are directives from on high, from the bureaucracy, or from very politicized members of school boards. And I think that's what we've seen across the country. So most teachers just want to teach. They're not getting involved with very young kids to try to pursue some type of ideological agenda. They just want to do it. And that's so I think in some ways it's a parent's protection, but I also think it's a teacher protection, because now teachers will be protected against someone from on high, whether in a bureaucracy or in a school board, telling them that they need to do genderbread man, or telling them that they need to talk about things like transgender to a first or second grader. Let's focus on the core academic subjects. Those issues, particularly for that age, that's something that parents can discuss or not as they deem appropriate, but that is not the right of a school district to supersede the parents' rights and inject things that the parents don't think are appropriate at those ages.
Governor, what's the biggest misconception that you're hearing people talk about this bill? What bothers you the most?
Well, honestly, I mean, I think it's just the fact that they tried to sloganeer, they tried to create things that were not in the legislation, which that's politics. I mean, that's what happens. But they're doing it, I think many of these leftist politicians, they're doing it because they actually support having woke gender ideology in first grade. They support how January was treated by the school system there. They don't think parents should know. They think you should be able to have a school district that will gender transition somebody without even telling the parents or giving them the consent. So they've got to figure out a way to camouflage that policy position, because that is not a policy position that is going to be terribly popular. So I think that they've gone through sloganeering and all these things really out of desperation, because they know they could never argue their position on the merits. They would have to, they would crumble, I think, under the weight of outrage from parents if they were actually standing on the wall and saying that they support those things. And what I just say is, look, you know, stand up and say what you're for, okay? If what you're for is good, you should be willing to stand up there and sing it to the heavens and let the chips fall where they may. The fact that you don't, the fact that you're trying to concoct narratives and manufacture this stuff, you know, that just shows me that you know you're taking positions that are totally untenable. And so I'm not surprised. The funny thing was like, I mean, I think, Evan, you were one of the first to ask me. I just started getting asked about it. I wasn't even following how they're doing the language and all this. And I start hearing these slogans, and I'm like, okay, I know it's BS, right? I don't know what exactly they wrote. I just know this is BS. I can sniff this a mile away. So then when I went back and read what the kind of the language was that they were debating, and it says, you know, no classroom instruction on sexuality or gender identity for grades K through 3. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Are they honestly going to go? Is this the hill they want to die on? And I understand they had dressed it up differently, but I was like, there is no way that that is something. But I think it was out of desperation, because they knew they couldn't defend it on the merits, and so they had to do it. The good thing is, you know, people reject these narratives nowadays because they know so many of them are false. And so what are they trying to tell you? Why are they doing that? Who's doing that? And when it's the usual suspects, I think the majority of people in Florida, they chalk it up to, you know, that's just business, you know, usual suspects, we're not worried about it. But look, at the end of they stand up and say what you're for. If you think January should have been treated that way, then stand up and make that case. I don't think very many people think that. If you think that a Florida parent sending their kid to first grade should have the genderbread man in there talking about being a different gender as for a 6-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid, say that and try to make the case for it. But just be honest about where you're coming from on all this. And so I just want to thank you guys for coming. Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate what you're doing. Thanks, everybody. God bless.
Governor Ron DeSantis shaking some hands as he makes his exit in Spring Hill, Florida. A lot of folks, educators, parents, kids in attendance for the bill signing. The bill now law, the Parental Rights in Education bill, now law here in the state of Florida. JB here, back with everybody on WFLA Now. This is Governor Ron DeSantis moments ago making some remarks on the bill that is now law, and we're going to get to some of your reaction here, everybody, on WFLA Now. Want to let you know that in the last several minutes, there have been a lot of different responses. We're going to bring up some video now showing you some of what has transpired over the last several weeks, several months in the state of Florida. There have been schools that have walked out. There have been demonstrations in various sections of the state. Those who have been saying that this bill is an attack on the LGBT community and singles out the LGBT community. Of course, you have Governor DeSantis here. You have supporters of the bill, the co-sponsors in the bill, those who voted for the bill, saying that it is a protection that is put into place for parents and for young students. But on the other side of the coin, you have a very, very vocal group across the country that are calling this an attack on the LGBT community, saying that it singles out the LGBT community. We have one statement. I'm going to start to bring in some of the statements here. This one coming from the Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus. And it says, and President Stephen Gaskell issuing a statement in response to DeSantis' remarks here today in Pasco County saying, quote unquote, "It's clear where Governor DeSantis' priorities are. Of all the challenges Florida is facing and the bills passed during the legislative session, he jumped at the opportunity to demonize LGBTQ plus Floridians His shameful bigotry is cynically designed for partisan gain and authoritarian rule at the expense of LGBTQ plus students, educators, and family. It's not a political game, though, when lives are on the line. We also had a statement that came out as well from Florida Senate Democratic leader Lauren Book, who has been very vocal against this bill, calling it an attack on Florida's LGBTQ plus community and our teachers. Perhaps the Senate Republican bill sponsor didn't read it or understand it because he couldn't even define simple terms in the bill, including sexual orientation. So there's a lot of back and forth going on. We have the bill. We've been reading the bill. Not only have we been reading the bill, but we have been doing our part here at WFLA to explain it to you. And it's, of course, labeled the Parental Rights and Education Bill, now law, signed into law moments ago by Governor DeSantis, but it has been dubbed Don't Say Gay. Now, of course, Don't Say Gay doesn't exist anywhere in the bill, but that is the moniker, the rallying cry. The folks in the state that are hurt and offended by this legislation have used that moniker to elevate their voices so that others across the country and around the world gain perspective for what they say is a very, very, very hurtful bill in the state of Florida. So you have two sides here that are and there's a massive divide between them. But at the center of it is the bill itself and the bill text. And I encourage you to read the text for yourself. You can. Not only, again, have we been reading it, we've been explaining it to you. Evan Donovan, our political anchor here at WFLA, was applauded during this press conference by House Speaker Chris Sprowls for doing such a thorough job and an unbiased job in explaining the bill. So WFLA has been committed to explaining this bill to our audience, and Evan has really led the way with that on Twitter and on WFLA.com, WFLA app, really spotlighting what the bill says and doesn't say, and also the impacts of what the bill says and doesn't say. Because a bill, just because there's language in there that says that this is what it intends to do, there's also the effects of the bill that aren't explicitly stated in the bill itself. But the text of the bill is as follows. At the bottom of page 4, it reads, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. And then the state standards, that was a question that Richard Corcoran was answering there towards the end, talking about the final section of the bill. If you want an explainer on the bill, what it does, go to WFLA.com. There's a link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to WFLA.com, where Evan, for weeks now, has been very, 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 very thorough in articulating what this bill says, doesn't say, and the effects that it's going to have at schools across the state of Florida. But what a lot of folks have been saying in response to this bill is that outside of the text of the bill itself, that it singles out the LGBT community. That's, again, according to critics of the bill, many of the critics who have been using Don't Say Gay as their rallying cry, including here in the Tampa Bay area, a lot of LGBTQ plus rallies in the Tampa Bay area in opposition of this bill, saying that beyond the text of the bill, you're singling out LGBTQ plus individuals. And they have, at great length, talked about how some who have stories from their youth when there was confusion and they just so many different points over the course of their childhood and over their teenage years where they didn't feel like that they had the support that they needed, and that this bill doesn't do anything to enhance support for LGBTQ community or LGBTQ plus people in community as they're being raised, and that there needs to be more resources for them rather than them being singled out by a piece of legislation. That there needs to be more to help out students when it comes to gender identity and gender orientation or sexual orientation, so on and so forth, at a younger age. So you have the two sides of this. Let's get into some of the comments that we're seeing here, everybody, on WFLA Now. I'm seeing this I'm seeing spammers. We're just, you know what? We're just going to ban this spammer and get them out of here so that they can't continuously spam the comment section. If it annoys you, it really annoys me, because I want to get to some of your comments on Facebook Live. You can use hashtag KJB. On YouTube Live as well, you can use hashtag KJB, and we'll try to spotlight some of your comments. We'll do a few here, but again, we really want you to read the text of the bill, or at least get Evan Donovan's explainer on WFLA.com. You can do that by clicking on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to our app or our website, whatever you have installed on your device, and you can read, of course, the explainer from Evan Donovan. I think that you are best equipped. You are best equipped to have an opinion on the matter when you know what is in the bill, what it states, and also too, but it goes beyond that. Reading the text of the bill is of course the first step, and then of course listening just to both sides and trying to gain a better understanding why supporters support it, why opponents oppose it. You'll be able to be more educated as to why this has been a lightning rod of controversy beyond the state of Florida, all 50 states, including LGBTQ plus communities around the world who are speaking out in opposition of this bill. I will. Danielle Underwood says hashtag KJB. The bill doesn't say don't say gay, so stop promoting that. We're not promoting anything. We're not promoting anything. The critics of the bill have been using that moniker to elevate their concerns about the bill. As you heard Governor DeSantis say during this press conference, that's politics. That happens all the time. Politics are using, finding ways to get your voice heard. That is really at the center of politics, and finding a way to give platform to what you stand behind, or in some cases stand against. So critics of this bill have used "Don't Say Gay" as their rallying cry. Democrats in the state of Florida are in both chambers of the state legislature. They are outnumbered. Of course, we have a Republican governor. So the Democrats in the state Senate, Democrats in the House, were using that as it was their rallying cry, and it did get a lot of attention across the country. So it's reporting there being this opposition that has formed to this bill, and that is what they are using to emphasize what they find so hurtful and so much of an attack. What they don't like about the bill, that's what they are using to get their message out. I hope that makes sense, folks. Caitlin, we'll try to get to your comment. I want to give everybody an opportunity to have their voices heard, but at the same time, we have to keep the train on the tracks, so to speak. Let's get to this comment from Tammy. Tammy says, hashtag, oh no. We'll get this comment loaded up. Excuse me, Tammy. Take me just another 5 seconds to get your comment loaded up on screen. And I think there it goes. Yep. Hashtag KJB, let kids be kids and not involve sexual orientation. There's plenty of time for that as they mature. This is something that supporters of this bill have been really trying to promote, that this is about kindergarten through third grade. Kindergarten through third grade. You heard DeSantis and the co-sponsors of the bill and Republicans in both chambers of the state legislature talking at great length about how this is intended for young children. And as children mature, that they say that there's more opportunity for discussions, but that it's about protecting the youth. And when they say youth, they mean, youth is a very vague term. It can be used to describe anybody from really, pre-K all the way up to, really high school. But what they're saying is that this bill is intended for K through 3 students. You also heard Governor DeSantis and he had props. He brought up signage to point to some examples. And I'm sure that those examples are going to be the subject of a lot of Twitter back and forth. Anytime that you take a very controversial subject and you're putting a visual behind it to articulate a real world example, it's of course going to get screenshotted, and then people are going to be commenting back and forth about how it applies to the narrative and the issues at hand. But this is Tammy's comment. Caitlin Beckingham says, #KJB, I am a Pulse nightclub shooting survivor. That's an attack on the LGBTQ community. Me and my wife of 11 years talk to our daughter about these things, and if parents don't like it, there are so many LGBTQ centers to go to and talk. Is the comment here from Caitlin. Caitlin, thank you for your comment. I very much appreciate it. We'll try to get to a couple others here before we have to get going. But again, I'm going to promote this as much as I can. WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Click on the link in the description of this video. You get the explainer behind this bill, the one that they just singled out and applauded Evan Donovan's coverage of this bill and the legislation and really what it does. That explainer is on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We'll stay here with you live for another couple of minutes. I cannot use a comment unless it uses a hashtag on your screen. With me being solo, it is just #KJB. So I will focus on #KJB comments. Some people, especially with a controversial issue, they don't want their comments to be spotlighted. Me just to take any comment out of the comment section and spotlight it in that way when we're talking about something that has, invoked such an emotional response in people. So I'll just take a couple more minutes to respond to a couple more of these comments before we really have to get going. And let's see here. Dan H says #KJB on YouTube. He says teachers need to teach reading, science, and math. Yeah, I completely agree. It's all about using, especially, and I just want to speak about this for a second. That's Dan's comment. And I just want to single out Dan's comment again, him saying teachers need to teach reading, science, and math. And my comments are separate from Dan's comments here. I just want to follow up to that a little bit and just say that with the pandemic and missing out on the K through 3 students, I think, were the ones that were most affected by the educational lapse that occurred with COVID and not having that in-person instruction for, and depending on where you were in the country and depending on what your districts or school systems rules were, that's a really precious age when it comes to what you need to be learning to be set up for the rest of your life. Elementary school is so important, and K through 3 is just one of those ages. So I've been thinking recently, in recent weeks and months, about that age group and about how they were, what the scale of the developmental impact is from some of them losing a year plus of in-person instruction, or around a year of in-person instruction. Again, depends on where you lived and what your school system's rules were, but also just thinking about that too. And I'm surprised that wasn't really referenced at all during the press conference today, because that's a big deal with schools right now, is what occurred, of course, during the pandemic as well. I'm not seeing too many other comments. I'm seeing a lot of back and forth comments let's see. I think that there's nothing wrong with Esther's comment, and I'll just bring this up on screen. Saying #KJB, can you all against this bill read the bill? I think she says support. I support the all sexual orientation. It's kindergarten to 3rd grade. Stop spreading misinformation. Yeah, you read the bill, but I'm going to take that a step further. It's not it's read the bill, read what the bill does, and then also read a little bit more about why it's so important for supporters of the bill to pass it, why it was passed, read their arguments for it, because their arguments for it aren't articulated in the bill. The bill is just like Chris Sproul said, it's just a few pages long. It's like four to, or what, how many pages is it? He said 4 pages double spaced, right? And it's 7 pages. I'm looking at it here. It's 7 pages, but it's not, what he's trying to say is that it's not a lengthy bill. Read the bill for yourself. You'll be able to do it in just a couple of minutes, depending on how fast you read. But also read, for supporters, why they thought it was important to pass this bill, and then really read into the comments by folks in the LGBTQ plus community as to why they find this bill offensive. There are LGBTQ plus people, many of them, who have read this bill and they still find it offensive. You need to be best armed for what this bill means to people. And you do that, you equip yourself with knowledge by understanding each side. And if you understand each side, you are best equipped to form your own opinion, an opinion of true merit. So I asked that, to Esther's comment, I think reading the bill is important. Again, the explainers on our website, and then understanding more about both sides and why it has been a lightning rod of controversy here in the state of Florida. Flowers, Evan Donovan has reported on some of the poll numbers as well. We've got that on our website as well. Folks, I got to get going. We have, of course, the explainer on the bill, as I've been talking about repeatedly. I really want to promote this as much as possible. The explainer of the bill from Evan Donovan, our political anchor here at WFLA News Channel 8, because it does a really thorough job of explaining what this bill means and what it does. It is now law. It's been signed into law by Governor DeSantis right here in the Tampa Bay area. So if you want to get a better understanding of it, realize that we have all of the various resources available to you on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and all the reaction that we're going to have as well. That's also going to be on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. So again, this is a lot. There's been a lot of discussion. I'm reading just some of the comments here. And again, we have highlighted both sides of this over the course of weeks now, months, going over both sides of this bill and why supporters support it, why opponents oppose it. It's very important that as we present stories like this to you, that we show you both sides. One of the sides, if you're an opinionated individual, there's one side that you're not going to agree with. So just keep that in mind, that there's the one side of this bill that a lot of people have been, or there's been one narrative with this bill that people have been very, 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 supportive of. And then also, too, there's the other side of this bill. What I'm trying to articulate, and I'm not doing a very, very good job, is that there are two sides of this very controversial bill, and do your best to understand it. And if you do your best to understand it, you'll be more equipped for conversations that you'll have with your friends, family, loved ones, colleagues, wherever you're joining us from. Go to WFLA.com, the WFLA app for the very latest. And of course, we'll see you next time, folks, on WFLA Now.